Hi, Olishan here. Finally getting around to posting a follow-up video to my original um, video showing a sorter in ASTRONEER. So this one has several new things. That other original video was from several years ago, before we had Rails, before we had auto extractors. So the new sorter has all kinds of new functionality, including something that I like to call an auto printer. So I'm just going to do a quick show and tell of this setup. It's fairly rough. This was an initial prototype, and I haven't gotten around to refining it any more than this, but hopefully it'll give you some inspiration for your own bases. So, first of all, with Rails now, of course, we're just using Rails for everything rather than a series of arms like you would have seen in the original video. Arms are still useful in all sorts of places, but not for moving things long distances. Rails are obviously the better choice for that. So that's what we use for everything, including rails that go out to auto extractors. So what you see over here is this whole series of train stations, um, rail stations, with trains that are coming in from auto extractors that are located all over the planet, underground, all over the place. And the sorter is able to just take those resources, and as a rail car from the sorter comes by, like this one here, those resources will go onto that car to then be sorted further down the line. So the auto sorter is very much like the old version. Um, Resources are just grabbed by sorting auto arms and put into the appropriate um, storage canister. So then the initial version of this whole thing allows you to simply take any of those resources from the inner ring of resource canisters here. Then what you'll see is another whole set of arms, because with this base, after I'd completed the basic sorter with the rails, I started adding on to it. So the add-on then is all of this that you see in the middle. I'm using power conduits here for a lot of the control because I find that the buttons become unstable when there's too many of them in a single game, whereas the power conduits are able to remain very stable with, as you can see, a huge number of them. So the basic idea with the auto printer is that you can, from your printer, this is a small printer, for example, you can choose an item that you're wanting to print, let's say an oxygenator, and then simply press a button, and the system will automatically place the resources that are required onto the printer and then print the item. So I don't have to actually go and find the resources that are required for any item that I want to print. I simply tell the printer what I want to print, hit the button, and off it goes. So there's my oxygenator that I just printed. And this is all just an extension of the sorting. So on this platform here, this extra large platform, there are some large storage silos which then have medium resource canisters, one for every type of resource that any item that you might want to print from the small printer might use. As those canisters are, I believe, not full, yeah, full, not full. So once a canister is not full, it's going to trigger, and you can see there's some power moving here. So it's going to turn on a switch that will start flowing power back to the sorter where that resource is located. Which in this case we can see we've got power going over here to iron, I believe. Yes, iron. So then as the sorting train comes by, this arm is going to place the iron onto the train, which will then be grabbed later on by this arm, and as soon as it gets put onto the platform, so it's tight quarters here, as soon as it goes onto the platform, the appropriate resource canister is going to grab it and store it for future use in the auto printer. So that's the basic idea. The rest of the power conduits that you see here are simply getting power to all the various switches. So there's a whole bunch of splitters just so that we can get power off of the platform, off of one node on the platform, which you can see in there. Split it to all the different switches that we're going to need. So there's a series of switches on this side of the platform. There's another series of switches and splitters on this side of the platform for these resource canisters. And each one is simply running a power line back to an auto arm in the sorter so that we can extract those resources. Now, obviously, there is a much simpler way of doing this, which would be to have the skip the sorter altogether and have resources come directly off the train and onto the auto printer. But like I said, this auto printer was kind of an afterthought add-on to this base. The rest of what you see, all of these other power lines and all of this, are two more auto printers. So here we have a medium auto printer over here and a large auto printer over here. They are just duplicates of the small auto printer, so every resource that might be used by the large or by the medium printer simply have their own resource canister. And it works in exactly the same way. Once a resource canister is not full, it triggers the power switch, which starts sending power along the line back to the auto arm in the sorter to put that resource onto the train, so that when the train passes by this platform, it will get grabbed by the arm and put onto the platform. There are some inefficiencies with this. Of course, this arm is going to grab any resource that's on the train. It doesn't know what resource is being requested. So there is another arm here, so that any resources that are superfluous, any that are extra, will stay on this little medium storage here. They'll get grabbed by this arm and put on the next train that passes by until it eventually finds its way back to its permanent storage spot. And in that case of diamond, that's just over here. So that's basically how the auto printer works. There is a little bit of a setup here in terms of the buttons and repeaters and things that you need to actually make that work. It took a little bit of time to figure out. It shouldn't actually necessarily be quite as complicated as it is, but it's a little bit buggy. So just to make it work consistently, I had to make it a little more complicated. If anybody's interested in a diagram showing what that setup is, I'd be happy to share that. Just put it in the comments below, and I can post something showing that in more detail. But this gives you some inspiration anyway of the kinds of things you can do with your base. Obviously this is end game, and by the time this was all built, I really barely need the printers anymore. I needed the printers to print all of the items that were required to make this all work. But it is a fun exercise. It's fun just in terms of exploring some of the concepts behind it and actually seeing how it would work. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you want any more details or any more detailed explanations of specific points, please let me know, and I'll try and post a video that shows it in more detail. Thanks.